This is Chris Morton, and you're listening to the Electric Fitness Podcast. So welcome to the Electric Fitness Podcast. This is the very first podcast that I'll be doing for the Electric Fitness gym. So in this podcast, I'll just be going over my story. So it's going to be all about me today. But yeah, it's going to, if you're listening in and perhaps you're a member or thinking about joining Electric Fitness, want to know a bit more about the style of training we do at the gym, who we really serve best, and in this podcast, a little bit about me and my background and how I've come to open up Electric Fitness Gym and a bit of my backstory before we get to that. So listen in. It should be a good podcast. I'm just going to be pretty much going off the cuff. Haven't really written anything down. Just have a few dot points that I'll go through. So I'm going to sort of start from the beginning. So I grew up in Brisbane, north side of Brisbane. Went to primary school at a primary school called Holy Spirit. I think it was Bray Park. So we lived in sort of the Strathpine, Bray Park area up until I was about 11. Played rugby league from the age of 5, which I really enjoyed. In that sort of area, did a lot of sports like, I guess like more like neighbourhood sports. Like all the kids in the area would just be in someone's backyard and play cricket in summer or rugby league in winter, and it got pretty rough. I think that's how I actually learned how to tackle. We used to play with older boys, and you really sort of got toughened up quite early. And then from the age of 12 to 17, my parents moved to the Sunshine Coast. So I moved schools. I had one more year of schooling where I was at Stella Maris at Maroochydore. That was for grade 7. And then the following year, moved to high school. It was St. John's College at Nambour on the Sunshine Coast. I think it was the first Catholic school on the coast, whereas now I think there's quite a few to choose from. And when I moved to the Sunshine Coast, I played rugby league in the morning, and then basketball at about lunchtime. Also, it's where I got introduced to surfing for the first time. But I actually took up bodyboarding. Bodyboarding sort of hit the scene, I guess, when I was about 13. And that's like when it first boomed and it was like a new thing. And it's sort of, I just remember in my area, it was quite good. I think Maroochydore bodyboarding scene was quite strong. And it sort of was like a real underground sort of thing as an alternative to stand-up surfing. I don't know how it is these days. If there's still many, I guess in that generation, still many 40-year-olds bodyboarding. But I used to love surfing. Grew my hair out quite long as well. I remember going to a rugby carnival when I was 13, and I had really long, surfy hair, and we went into Brisbane, and I just copped it. I remember all the time. It was just that surfy sort of look. These Brisbane kids were just, that's one thing they really picked on. But I remember when I moved from Brisbane to the Sunshine Coast, the level or standard of rugby wasn't as high. So I think I stood out a bit more in playing rugby, and I was able to sort of be one of the better guys on my earlier teams. And then I remember when I was switching we played rugby union at St. John's College. So I actually switched from league to union, and I also played club rugby. I played club rugby union for Maroochydore Swans. I think under 14s and under 15s. And I also played schoolboy rugby as well. I was actually able to represent Sunshine Coast in under 15s and also in under 17s when I was both 16 and 17. I was able to win we won the Sunshine Coast Schools Boy Comp at under 15s, and also when I was in under 17s or year 12. So we had quite a good group of guys going through, and even had some guys represent Queensland in the Queensland country area through our school system. Had a couple of teammates that actually achieved that. So rugby's always been a big part of through my school years. Academically, I didn't really apply myself. I wasn't like shocking, but I wasn't really setting the house on fire either. I think I enjoyed probably graphics the most, which is like doing like architect type drawings. I enjoyed that the most. I enjoyed HPE, which is like health and phys ed, although the theory part was incredibly difficult and didn't really understand what was going on. I thought that was quite hard, but obviously the practical side, when we'd go out and do activities and that sort of stuff, I think everyone enjoyed. I was able to do maths a bit, but not too advanced. I did biology, which I actually quite enjoyed. That was quite good. But yeah, overall, we had OP scores then, and I didn't do particularly well. But I was able to scrape in an OP score that got me into to IT. So it was actually the very, very first year that information technology was a degree, would you believe? So that was back in 1996. Was the very first year information technology you could actually do that as a degree. Imagine that today, like everyone is touched by information technology. I didn't know too much what it was, but I knew it was to do with, obviously, with computers. There's any of my old IT friends in the biz that I worked with in Brisbane would laugh at that, me saying computers. Bit of an inside joke there. Yeah, I think because once I picked up a phone and my phone rang in the office, and it was just someone. Might have been like Origin or something, and they asked like what I did for a living, and I just said computers, and everyone just absolutely cracked themselves up laughing, because that was my, I guess, level of being able to articulate what I did for a job. So I think I've come a long way since then. This would have been in my 20s. But going back to, I guess, my transition from high school into university was quite tough in that first year. I had to move from the Sunshine Coast to Brisbane, and found that actually quite tough. Just studying, didn't really understand what it was all about. The penny did not drop at all. It's probably how I could put it. I didn't really even know what I was doing with IT. There was so then you could pick different majors and minors, and I didn't really understand what the different majors actually meant. I actually went with data communications, which is more like networking, putting all the computers networked together, which is actually quite tough, not particularly easy to understand or to be quite good at that and get quite a good score or high distinction in all that assessment. I was quite average. There was also I think I minored in, might have been computer science, or it might have been what's the other word? It was more like just not information technology, but more like how information can get sort of used or spread. But there was one little subsection within all that was doing HTML design or coding in terms of web coding. So that even wasn't a thing back then. I think there was Netscape was the browser in the university, and just then we're starting to learn how to make your own basic websites and real basic coding that. But you could have the applications of marketing or business. And I think that's where I sort of got my eyes sort of lit up. I thought, that's pretty cool. And it was just sad at the time that was only a little subsection that you could do. So through that period, actually, I still playing rugby on the Sunshine Coast. So we would train. I would study in Brisbane in the morning. Then I'd drive back and we'd train on a Friday night. I think they did that just because they knew they could get all the boys back that were studying in Brisbane to come back and play Sunshine Coast rugby on the weekend, and we play Saturday. So I did that when I was 18 and 19. We won the local rugby comp. I think it was in the under 19s, but I was 18. We won that. Pretty sure we won it. And then the next year we lost in the final, but I broke my wrist in the semi-final. I remember that. I was quite early on in the game. Took the ball up, just copped a hit where I had to put my arm out, and I just rolled over my wrist, and straight away it was like gone. I think I got out to half time, and I just couldn't move it. Had broken the scaphoid bone, which sort of put me out. Well, it was the end of the season, so it didn't really matter. And then the following year, I think I just stopped playing rugby. I can't remember. It might have been 2021, and I was at the end of my university degree. And then started looking for some jobs in Brisbane. I think with like web companies, like you could that's when like the internet was probably been around for about 3 or 4 years, and you could start commercializing web pages. Like there was businesses that would have a website or have an email address. There's all that sort of going on. So I guess there was like companies that were springing up that would be like web development companies. I think that's what I was like going, oh, that's probably where I'm going to fit in. And then a job came up on the Sunshine Coast. I think I was 21 or 22, so I actually moved back home for a bit. And they were just paying me cash in hand to do websites for local businesses and for their own projects internally. I think I over-delivered for what they were expecting, but I got bored pretty quick and wanted to. And I think this has been my story the whole time. I think with IT stuff, you can develop up something quite quick in like that development phase, and once it gets operational, it's just maintenance and it's boring as hell. There's not much you need to do, just sit around and waiting for things to break, or unless you want to keep improving the product. And then, I was probably just young at that stage too, and then I was just looking around for more jobs, and there's only really jobs in Brisbane, and one came up with a company that was trying to build their own search engine. It was in Brisbane. What was it? What were we called at the time? I think it was called, I don't know if they actually called anything. They ended up being called Toast. Then they went to Dark Blue Sea. They're just a web development company. I was just a young guy then. I actually accepted less money to go work for them in Brisbane. So I moved back to Brisbane. It was about the same money gross-wise, but I obviously wasn't working cash in hand. I was an employee, so I had to start paying tax. It was like working for a private project there for them, which was quite good. But then again, I got quite bored quickly with what I was doing. But there's only like so much work around, and there's actually more experienced guys in web development in that company. So it's more just to sit back. I think I realized at some point it was like, I just got to sit back and just develop on the job and just keep improving the products that I'm working on. I think, overall the company was always making money. The owner at the time was ahead of the curve in terms of internet related products. And had been a big .com guy, had bought lots of domain names, was in that space as well, and could see the commercial viability of monetizing domain names. And that sort of, I was always around that sort of, other people in the company were all talking about how to make money through online ventures. So it was like a bit of a think tank, a bit of a hub for really young guys in the space, and with a leader that was super passionate about monetizing the internet, however that is, like from anything, just like bits and bytes. We're not selling products; it's just bits and bytes that you're selling. So it's it was just really sit back and just try and learn, and then we progressed through various different projects. I think they ended up getting to the point where they knew that a lot of the projects weren't working, and the ones that were, was basically monetizing domain names. And then I actually got made redundant when I was about, I don't know, maybe 24, 25. But I wasn't too worried at the time. I just knew, like, I was at times super bored in that company. I was learning a lot, but, I wasn't like a major stakeholder in the business, and I knew things were coming to an end. They were letting guys go in different waves. Then my time came. So I was out of work for about a month. And then I picked up another job with a really, I guess, shifty company, not doing the best sort of stuff for web-related stuff. But thankfully, I got a knock on the door from my old boss, just starting up a new venture, and that was going to be in online gambling. And he actually bought the domain onlinegambling.com, and it was my job to get that ranking in search engines and start monetizing the domain. That's where online casinos, online poker, online blackjack, online sports betting, or really the early days of online sports betting started to happen. When's this? Like, this would be, when are we talking about? Early 2000s, 2001, maybe 2002 from memory. So we're talking like 20 years ago now. Sort of the birth of like online gambling, online poker. And we were at the forefront of that, which is like, it's an absolute billion-dollar industry. Online sports betting, especially in Australia now, is just unbelievably lucrative and crazy, but also very saturated. Okay, so yeah, I was just working on that for about, and that was actually really good. I really enjoyed just running the project by myself. I could see I was at the forefront of things with search engine optimization, and also monetizing a very lucrative, I guess, domain. People were gambling online, and we were turning over some good money. So what we were doing, people would hit the website, and we just have basically like, top 10 online casinos, and then people would bounce out to these actual online casinos. We didn't own the casinos. We would just refer them on, and we would get basically what they call like affiliate commission, or like a CPA, like a cost per acquisition. So every time someone joins a casino, actually deposits and plays, the casino would pay us, maybe back in those days, it was actually probably quite small, like maybe $200. But these days, you might get like $1,000 for one of those acquisitions. So you imagine doing that, like, just say you did that 5 of those a day. That's like anywhere from like, 1,000 to, I don't know, some of the big guys might do $50,000 a day in acquisitions for these casinos or sports betting companies. And then, that's at some point the owner also decided to operate an online poker room, and I sort of had a bit of a role there. It was interesting, I think mainly because everyone else in the office was doing that, but I was still doing my side thing for him. And then, then I got into a bit of what they call like an affiliate management role. So I was looking after affiliates for our online poker room. So that's where people who have other poker information sites, and we asked them, can you list the banner of our poker room on your site, and we would pay them commission for referring customers to us. So that my role was like a client relationship management role, or like starting to border on like a marketing type role, but we did have a marketing manager above me. But then my role was sort of a bit split within the company, more from my wanting to do that, but it probably wasn't working out. I wasn't quite experienced to do both, and you really just needed to be the search engine guy or the affiliate manager guy. And then, I think through then it was quite difficult. I think Google's always changing the algorithm, and I got whacked, I think, a few times on a few sites, lost some rankings. Sort of like, I guess maybe I was off the ball in that a bit. But I think by then I was around about 27, and then I sort of, again, got a bit bored with things. Also, in my personal life, I had sort of been in and out of a few relationships, and had recently broken up with one that was like a long term. Then also, actually, in my sort of early 20s, I actually didn't drink too much. I wasn't much of a drinker. I basically had a girlfriend at the time, and more family focused, more like always around my girlfriend's family. Seems to be a thing where I'm always around the girls in my life would always were still quite close to their family. I don't know if it's a guy thing, like if guys are always still close to their family, or if it's just a girl thing. But there, once we broke up then, and I started to potentially drink a bit more. I'd go out, more social, like so you can be around other guys and meet and drink. But I started drinking have a few big benders for the first time. But yeah, this is when I first started going through a few things that I didn't know, like now down the track, I actually is more bipolar related. So alcohol was exacerbating any stresses in my life. And then with, underlying, condition of bipolar, that could either make me sort of like turbocharge any high feelings or turbocharge any low feelings back then. It's sort of the first few times where I'd be at the end of a drinking session, and I might be like, if something was really bad had happened, and I was in a negative mindset, then I'd go really, really down. But then I'd come out of it the next day. So I didn't really know what was going on. I just thought it was like, it's just a hangover. I got these like negative thoughts, but then it would go away. So it wasn't like super bad, but they were like the early signs of like something bigger. And I think also with bipolar, your tendency to want to do a lot of projects as well. You tend to like get these bursts of incredible energy, and and you have big ideas, and you think you can take them on, and you think you can do them. And if you've had a bit of a track record of actually completing some big projects, you think that you should always be doing that, and you start to like, basically your engine is over revving a lot with bipolar. So sometimes you get in this state where you're just revving and revving and revving, and you don't know how to pull back and take a break and relax. And then what happens is then you crash and you go into like a down state for a while. So yeah, I got the idea that I was all right, I'm sick and bored with my job in Brisbane. Wasn't too sure about where I was going in the company. I had an opportunity to go work in London. Wasn't with a girlfriend, wasn't tied down. I had a house in Brisbane that I had bought, I think a year or two earlier. So I knew I had a house behind me. I was just going to rent it out. So I went over to London, accepted a job with another guy that I had known through the industry. It was to work with online casinos over there in London. London's a beautiful place. I moved over in summer. Knew a few people just from the industry in the online gaming world. But then again, you got more stuck in partying. London's a very expensive place. Had a tiny, tiny little apartment. I was taking all my money, just paying for this apartment. And it's just basically spending, going into the red, partying, not saving any money, and really hating the job, actually. It was just another job where I just couldn't see how I was going to progress anywhere. It's just more like, cut and paste, like not really doing anything groundbreaking or exciting. Just another in-between type job. Then I got a friend who was living in Malta, a Danish guy, had set up his own Danish online casino. And Malta was like basically on the very early days of becoming a hub for online sports betting and casinos and poker companies to base themselves down in Malta, especially for European companies. And he was in on that very, very early and set himself up. And he invited me to come down and be his affiliate manager for an online Danish poker room. And I had a background in that. I'd been on both sides of the fence, being an affiliate and also an affiliate manager. So I knew the role quite well. And it was going to give me a wage that was equivalent to my London wage, but living in Malta, which is a lower, the cost of living was quite low compared to London, or dramatically lower, actually. I was saving so much money living in Malta, I just couldn't spend the money, which was good, and I was sending money back to Australia. So yeah, moved to Malta. So this is when I was about 28, and yeah, I joined a rugby team there as well. There was actually 5 rugby teams on the island. It's a country of about 400,000 people, but I describe it as that everyone lived in 2 areas. So it's like if you're on the Gold Coast, everyone lives in either Broadbeach or Burleigh Heads, and like that's the whole country. So you get to know everyone really quick, which has its ups and downs. It was really good for me. I sort of became a bigger fish in a smaller pond, if you will. Our rugby team was quite successful. A lot of the guys in the rugby team it was more of an affluent club. Everyone in the club was from a real affluent area of Malta. So it was really fun times. And Malta's rugby's one of those universal games where you can travel the world. A little bit like CrossFit. You could go to any CrossFit box in the world, and you're going to get a very similar experience. And that's the same with rugby as well. Then did that for about, I think, till I was like 32. Ended up being over there for like 4 to 5 years. But yeah, I got a little bit homesick, a little bit bored. Was I really going to live there forever? Had done a lot of traveling, done a heck of a lot of partying. I actually started to get overweight, even though I was playing rugby and I was working out at the gym. That was actually when I started to get a bit more into, doing training to actually improve my rugby. So it wasn't necessarily training to look ripped or training to like lose weight. I was trying to train to just get stronger for the collisions in rugby. I was doing that a little bit, we did a tiny bit at schoolboy level. I didn't play any rugby in my mid-20s. I actually just dropped out of like sport altogether. I wasn't doing anything. So I was actually like probably quite weak, quite skinny, starting to get skinny fat. So like quite skinny limbs, skinny legs, but starting to get that sort of bit of a belly from all the drinking that I was doing. Probably thought I was this really fit guy as well. But I look back at some of the rugby photos of me playing in Malta, and I had like a little pot belly and I was running around. And then I started to I want to be better in my rugby games. I want to, be able to like really dominate more in the game. So I started to get more into strength training, probably not so much cardio. I think I've always shied away from cardio, but I was always really more interested in strength training. And that's where I started to just do my own workouts outside of what we're doing in rugby training. You didn't really do that much in rugby training, more than make bodyweight stuff, drills, a little bit of pre-season stuff. You really had to sort of figure it out for yourself. But I remember some of the older guys on the team, obviously if they're still playing rugby and they're older than you, they've figured things out and they've realised that they've got to be fit to keep playing. So they have a passion for rugby, but they realise that if they've got a bit of a drive in them, they're going to have to do extras and be a fit sort of person. So it starts to become a bit of a lifestyle thing. But yeah, at some point then I decided I wanted to go back home to Australia. I wasn't enjoying my job in Malta again, which is like a common theme of not enjoying these behind the desk computer jobs. Being stuck behind a computer all day isn't that fun once you've been doing it for year after year after year. Moved back to Brisbane. And then I joined my old company back in Brisbane, and they started doing horse racing, and they were the very early days of what you now know as Ladbrokes and Neds. If anyone has seen those ads on, I actually never worked on that project, but I was in the same office as when that project came to be, the absolute genesis of it, when the big owner wanted to go, yep, let's do this horse racing betting thing. But I had a bit of a background in it. I actually worked in the very early days with him back when I was in Australia on melbournecup.com, and we actually saw when it was Melbourne Cup Day, that site went off. We actually had banners of like Centrebet, might have been the early days of sports bet or sporting bet, and we were sending so much traffic we were crashing their websites. melbournecup.com was up because we knew how to keep the site going, but all the traffic we were sending to the sports bookmakers was crashing their websites. They didn't have the capacity to handle it. So we knew there was money to be made in online sports betting back in those days. So where are we now? This is getting quite long, into 30 minutes here. I haven't even got really to like health and fitness and opening the gym yet. Where were we? So we're talking about, he started doing the online sports betting site. I moved back to Brisbane from Malta. Back to Brisbane from Malta. I was just working in another sort of in-between role, not really doing anything crazy. Got super, super bored again. I can't remember. I remember starting really drinking a lot. I was really going out. I was a single guy and I was drinking a heck of a lot. So I'd go out on massive benders with a few mates. And I just couldn't recover the next day. I'd wake up in the morning sometimes like crying for no reason. I had no idea why. I was just getting really upset. But over the course of the day, I would come out of it and I'd be fine. But then I started actually developing anxiety for the first time. I was getting really anxious going into work, having to work. Started getting brain fog, which I'd never had before. And just really feeling shit. Like when people say sometimes they just feel shit all the time, I actually got to that state where I was like, man, I just don't feel good in the head. Like I just feel foggy and feel like I've got all these problems in my life and things aren't just going anywhere. Like I'm not in a relationship, not a job I don't enjoy. The only thing that was sort of really good was like I had a house behind me. I knew how to like do the jobs I was in. Just wasn't enjoying like maybe the people around me, the culture of places I was working in. I don't know what it was, but for some crazy reason, I actually applied for a job and went back to Malta. So I told like my parents, and then I got my house rented out again. I quit my job that I just moved back to with people that I'd known from my old boss, and probably like letting people down left, right, and centre. But I was like, all right, I could only draw back that I felt happier in Malta than I did in Australia. So I had like this reverse culture shock from living overseas for so long, then coming back into Australian culture. I actually found it really confronting because I was used to that feeling of being the token Aussie overseas and the novelty that comes with that, to coming back and just being another Aussie. No one gives a shit. You're just another guy. A lot of guys were like ahead of me that I'd come back to in jobs and roles. I knew I had the skills, but I just couldn't get my foot in, just feeling, I guess, frustrated all the time. Then, I went back to Malta and still hadn't been diagnosed with bipolar yet. So just having like these highs and lows, alcohol-fueled lows and highs all the time. But no, nothing like really crazy in terms of like now and again I have some dark thoughts, but it would always come out of it. I actually always put it down to like just being, I was in a hangover, and that's what you'd sometimes feel in a hangover. Then I went back over to Malta. I was there for about a month, and I was again drinking really heavily again. And then that's when I had my basically big, massive breakdown. I think I'd played rugby, then I was drinking mid-afternoon, drinking. Then went out again that night and drank, hadn't eaten pretty much all afternoon after playing rugby, so really depleted in energy. Was with a rugby mate, and we went to go into a club that I had always been able to go into, always knew everyone in the club. And I was just standing at this doorway. This bouncer was like trying to shoo me to come either in or out, and I actually didn't know what he was saying. And I was like, I just sort of shrugged, probably looked at him like I was being like really like a bit of a twit or something. And then he just came racing over and just like shoved me down and pushed me out down the stairs and made me feel really like, I felt really like I've never been shoved out by a bouncer. Like, what's going on? And then I just started walking home. It was like 5 a.m. or something. I'm like, I was like, what am I doing with my life? And then I just broke down in tears. And then I actually went into a depression for literally 2 weeks. This is where you get diagnosed with either, for me it was a bipolar diagnosis, but you need to have 2 weeks in a depression, and that's how you actually get the diagnosis, either being in a deep depression or a bipolar diagnosis. And yeah, I basically couldn't not get out of bed for 2 weeks in my apartment in Malta. And I was on the phone to my parents to like come home. I had to like quit my job again. So I quit my job again. I had to like ship all the stuff back that I just shipped over. Had to tell my rugby mates that I'm leaving again that in Malta. No one really knew what was going on. I was extremely embarrassed. Just could not wait to get on that plane and get home. And then Dad was like, when you come home, we'll get you in to see a GP. And then got referred out to a psychologist and basically retraced, my what was going on and all these events in my life that actually the psychologist said, yeah, you've actually got bipolar. So yeah, immediately went on some antidepressants, and then something that a bit later that sort of stopped pretty quick, and then you get on like something they give to like people who have seizures. It's just to level you out. Immediately started to put on a lot of weight, but I wasn't really exercising that much. But this is like, I guess, where my journey started to like explore the body more, explore how am I going to feel good in my head without just like taking, a tablet. That's where you get into like cognitive behavioral therapy, where it's more about triggers, managing your situation, your life, that you're not going to get into situations where you might go and trigger yourself into a big high, into a big low. This is where you got to start to learn to live middle of the road. So never get too high about life, never get too low. But yeah, this was like ground zero. So I was living with my parents, had quit had no job, just had my house in Brisbane that was being rented out, had a little bit of money in the bank. But prior 3 months earlier, I had started like I'd always built like affiliate websites. Had little projects to do in the online gaming space, and online forex started to come up and be popular, where you do like forex trading or currency trading, and I started making some sites in that area, and that actually started to receive some commission checks from those websites, and yeah, I basically got in early on that, and I was able to recover at my parents' house and actually make a business out of it from literally nothing, to the point where within 3 to 6 months I was making my wage that I was making in Brisbane. I think it was like I turned over like 20k a month. I'd made 80k already gross in like 6 months, when my wage in Brisbane was about $80,000. So I was like, shit, man, I don't need anyone. I can do all this stuff myself. And then I registered an ABN, made a company name, which I still own today. It's the same ABN that I operate off, and yeah, was able just to grow it, basically into a multi-million-dollar company, all privately run and owned just by myself. Just through that currency trading space, and it's just like behind the scenes software that connects things. Like I don't own a currency company, I don't own an online trading company. It was just more referring people who were interested in that, bouncing them onto someone else, and all the software that's behind the scenes operating that. And that, had built that from age 30, 34, 35 till still running it today, like 7-8 years later. I've actually talked about how I came to open up the gym in a bit of a series on my other podcast, The Recovery. So I'll put links in the description, and you can really go into how I came to like getting the gym up and running. But this is bit more of just like about me, how I've come to where I am. So I think it was about age 37. I was like whilst I was running my own company, so what I was doing for my fitness was I was going to just local Anytime Fitness I did for a while, Fitness First I did for a while, and it's basically just looking at online routines, following, I guess, the early days of fitness influencers. I don't think Instagram was even a thing. And I was just doing my own routines. Also played rugby for a season when I was 35 with the Caloundra Lighthouses. Played a few I played the whole season in A grade except for one game, which is really good. And I think my last game was in the semi-finals, which we lost, but it was like a really good game in terms of I really put in my best effort. I think, and if I look back and go, that was my last game. I really gave it my all, but I knew I didn't have it anymore. I lost all my lateral movement, like from side to side movement, which in rugby is really important to be able to be dynamic left to right. Once I got going and running, I was okay. I still had a bit of speed and I had a bit of size so I could handle things, but I didn't have the best conditioning. Still didn't really know how to condition my body. Even like back then, like at 35, going through rugby and still really not conditioned. Just really not really knowing how to do a full strength total body workout and get things going. And then I think they moved to the Gold Coast, and then had joined Fitness First, and I was just doing like lunchtime workouts, and it was just so boring, man. I was just, maybe I'd back squat. I probably always just kept doing ring dips, bench press. Let's maybe try and do a front squat, but didn't like it, didn't feel good in the wrists. I remember they put up a rig at one point, and I didn't realize that what they were trying to do was start to get into the functional space. And now and again, you'd get a guy that would come in and he'd be doing like these crazy pull-ups on the rig. I guess he was probably from a CrossFit box, and he'd maybe come in to do some strength work or try and work outside of class times in CrossFit boxes. They started they had Olympic platforms on there as well. And I was like, now and again, you get a guy come in, he'd be snatching. And I'd be like, he's throwing this barbell overhead. How the hell is he doing that? It just looked exciting, like a different way to apply your fitness. And I think then I started just maybe doing some Googling. And of course, like everyone else, came across the CrossFit Games. I can't remember what particular video that I saw. It was definitely a CrossFit Games video. And then started Googling CrossFit boxes on the Gold Coast, and then also trying to do CrossFit workouts at Fitness First. I think I tried to do thrusters and whatever, and I was like, oh shit. Yeah, and it was so you get stuck in a place of like, I'm not fit enough to join this CrossFit box. Everyone's going to be like at that level, but then I know I'm stuck. If I don't have, I guess, the balls to go into a CrossFit box and start from the bottom, at some point I'm like, I need to know how to do this. I need to like be able to move better, feel better, get conditioned properly. So eventually found a box that was Urban Energy in Miami, not where the fruit shop is. It's now where Lumber Punks is with Matt Harpu. I think when you join one of these boxes for the first time and you've been out of fitness or maybe had a background in sport, my advice is that you just have to be consistent and just keep turning up 3 times a week and be very humble. And you're going to have to start at the bottom. You're going to learning all these. There's going to be more advanced guys in the gym, but they'll be willing to help you. And you're just going to start from the bottom, but you're going to start learning how to get health and fitness the proper way. And you're not going to learn everything in the first week. It's going to be basically a lifestyle change. And you're going to start learning more about nutrition, learning more about mobility, flexibility, learning about stability, weaknesses in your body, all the imbalances that you've developed. If you're an older person, probably older than 30, there's be things going on, maybe some old injuries in sport, maybe some being stuck behind a computer all day. You're going to probably got a really stiff thoracic, stiff shoulders, stiff upper neck. You might have a bit of RSI going through your wrists from tapping at a keyboard. There's all these things that are going to hold you back from doing some of the things that you want to do, but you're just going to have to maybe go backwards before you go forwards. So yeah, I just started doing CrossFit at the box for a while. Then that closed down. I've got all this in another video, so I won't go over it too much. Then we found another one with Renee's at, she was CrossFit 4220. And then she had to move, losing a lease, move to another location at Mermaid Beach. Rebranded to CrossFit Harpu in honor of Matt, who had died through cancer, which is quite tragic, but I've gone through that in another video. And yeah, I was there quite happy for a couple of years. But then, yeah, I've gone all this in this other video, like I said, on the recovery podcast, which I'll link to. But basically, short story is that, yeah, like I was quite set up financially. And then I just thought that my sort of journey into health and fitness started to really be, I was more passionate on that side of things. And I really thought with my, I guess, financial background, I could get a box up and going and start helping out others that had maybe need what I needed in my mid-30s. And that's where my focus is, I guess, now, is like anyone. And we have clients like this, and they tell us all the time that they just want to start feeling better in themselves again. They might have done really well in a career, but they're probably quite stressed, maybe have a really young family, married, but they know that they need to get their body right so they can, be there for their family and for the kids. Like just being fit and healthier brings all disease rates down in your body. One thing you learn in CrossFit is like this wellness scale, and you could be, say, really bad wellness to really good wellness. And the more fitter that you are, you're going to get more to that healthier side rather than the bad side where you're starting to get into like diseases and your body's breaking down, or even mentally you're not feeling quite good about yourself, and then it just gets worse and spirals. So that's where sort of I come into the picture. So my goal is, I went and got my CrossFit level 1, which I got in another video as well 2 years ago. Got my cert 3 and 4 in fitness a year ago as well. My role is to more be just an owner of the gym and have really good coaches in there. I'll also do some coaching myself, but more for time-wise with a young family and running multiple businesses. It made more sense for me to be behind the scenes running the gym and trying to get more awareness that we do exist and we're a really good option for guys out there in the community that just want to feel strong again, stay active, and be really good role models for their family. That's sort of our target sort of customer that we can serve best. Sure, like with CrossFit, anyone can be in the box from 18 to 65 plus, but really what we specialize in and can educate is probably more that 35 to 45-year-old person, probably married, is married and has kids, maybe quite a young family still, but know they need to keep doing some sort of fitness. And I find with group training, especially in CrossFit, it's the best bang for your buck. So you can come in, and some workouts could be 10 minutes long with a strength piece, or you could have like a 30-minute long endurance piece. And just the constant exposure to all these different types of training, different movements, you find over time your body starts to balance out and you actually become CrossFit. Like you're fit at everything. And it's a really amazing feeling that you can go in and do 10 pull-ups, chin-ups, or you can do a clean and jerk at maybe even at body weight. And even maybe after 3 or 4 years of CrossFit, you're doing like over your body weight in terms of throwing weight over your head. You can do deadlifts, do the high skill gymnastic movements. You do running on the biker, the air bike, and it's all mixed together. You don't have to think about what to do. It's every CrossFit box, even if really poor programming, it's still probably better than what you're going to do by yourself at Fitness First or Anytime Fitness. Unless you're into bodybuilding or doing physique building, if you want to be functionally fit it's a different sort of thing than to look good for aesthetics. And your nutrition will come with time. Like, I think, nutrition is a piece of it, but I feel like you can just make small wins, like just maybe drink a bit more water, sleep a bit better, and your diet will you'll probably just start having better choices in your diet maybe over 2 to 3 years. I think like guys that come in and want to do like crash diets or 6-week challenges or 12-week challenges, it's just a waste of time. You're going to go in and you're going to be back to where you were because you haven't done any sustainable changes or habits. It's got to happen over, I reckon, like 3 years. So like when you join Electric Fitness, it's actually a 3-year commitment that you should be signing up for. And then let's look at what your life looks like after 3 years. And if at 3 years you can say your life is better or you feel better than what you did 3 years ago, if you say that you don't, I would be very shocked. I think ask anyone who's done CrossFit for 3 years is most likely they can definitely say that it's been good. If they feel like it's been bad, I reckon probably they've been working out too much. So they're probably overtraining and training too much for a different set of reasons. And they probably need to back off and find more balance in their life where they're still just training 3 to 4 times a week and maybe doing some other things. If someone's training like 6 times a week, they're probably going to burn themselves out, which I found out as well, how to back off the training, especially as you get older. Then you actually enjoy your training a bit better. So, that's quite a long video. I've actually hit almost 50 minutes of talking, more of a big backstory of how things came before the gym, and how I came to the gym. And I've got some other podcasts there on the recovery podcast where you can sort of deep dive into how the different stages of how I came from thinking about the gym to actually making it happen. So it's probably good to listen to those. I might wrap it up there, just under an hour, which is probably my longest podcast ever. So, feel free to follow me on Instagram. I'll post those links in as well, or you can become a friend with me on Facebook. So if you have just joined the gym, welcome to the gym at Electric Fitness. Or if you're thinking about joining, please get in touch. Thanks. Bye.